Hello, everybody. So, a lot of miners are running Clean Spark. As you know, I own Riot as well. I have a teeny tiny bit position in Iron, but I never liked Iron too much because it's an old little Bitcoin. Miners are running right now. They're all running except one miner, which is Mara, formerly known as Marathon. Mara is the biggest miner, but it is the miner that is not running. And to me, it's a little bit of a nonsense, and the stock is nonsense undervalued. We are supposed to believe that this stock, only 4% above MNAV, is the value of this stock. So all of the stuff beyond the Bitcoin, we're supposed to believe it's only worth 4.5% of the actual value of the business. You essentially get the business for free when you buy Mara. And this undervaluation of Mara has been going on not quite for a year, but for a very long time now. It's been 8-9 months. As far as February 2025, we had this problem. And if we go back, we weren't trading very high at all on MNAV, roughly at one, sometimes slightly below one. But we've had a stable coin type of MNAV for Mara. And to me, this is a little nonsense because they own so much Bitcoin, so you already have the put dynamics of what if you wanted to buy 52,000 Bitcoin right now? Could you without making the price go up? The answer to that is likely not. But also, the operating business generates a lot of extra Bitcoin that get added to the cash pile, and they don't sell their Bitcoin. They dilute their stock to pay for their electric bill and to pay for expansion. They dilute the stock, but they do not sell the Bitcoin. And I would much rather see a company dilute their stock and keep the Bitcoin than dilute a little less and sell the Bitcoin, which is what CleanSpark is doing. And I didn't like when CleanSpark did that. They're also pretty forward-looking, if you ask me, pretty innovative. They're lending 31% of their Bitcoin to hedge funds. And so you may say, well, the purist would tell you, I'm never ever going to do that. The purist would tell you it's too risky, etc. But there is a way for these hedge funds to earn a yield on that Bitcoin via some trading arrangements, via lending it. And there is a way to earn a yield on Bitcoin. I've discussed this before when I discussed MicroStrategy. A simple way is you put $1 billion of Bitcoin, and then against that $1 billion of Bitcoin, you put $1 billion in USD tokens, like a stable coin, and you create a liquidity token with that pair, and you list that pair on a DEX, and then you can make money. I'm sure that's I'm not sure, but I think these hedge funds are doing things like that in the back end and just earning the spread and giving Mara the cash, the income. Right? Metaplanet's writing put options. They could write call options maybe if a company was willing to part with the Bitcoin. You could sell very very low delta call options on it, and you would essentially never get assigned, and you would keep your Bitcoin and keep the yield. There is a yield that can be earned on the Bitcoin. Mara is a little forward-looking in that they're trying to earn a little yield on the Bitcoin, right? Saylor is not, for example. Saylor is waiting for this to be tried and true, but we are not in the FTX era anymore. And I like that they're doing that. It sweetens the money a little bit, sweetens the deal for Mara. They make a little more money. I wouldn't like to see them do it on the entire bag, but doing it on a little part of the bag is fine. And so, like I said, they keep mining the Bitcoin. In October, this is their press release from early October about the September production. You can see they mined 736 Bitcoin, up from 705 Bitcoin. So that is an increase in 4% in the number of Bitcoin. That's an average Bitcoin per day of 24 Bitcoin per day. That's what their operations produce. That's quite a bit of money if you ask me, right? That's 2.7 million bucks at current price. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of Bitcoin. And they increased that, and global hash rate. They increased their production of blocks even as global hash rate grows, and of course, growing Bitcoin in the face of increasing difficulty and increasing hash rate is very impressive, and they've been able to do that because they've been deploying more miners. They've been growing the business. They have a few highlights, which frankly are quite good. The revenues Okay, so that's when they recognize it. That's when they mine the Bitcoin. So look at it as kind of a mix between Bitcoin mined and price of Bitcoin multiplied, and then that's what you recognize it. They're up 64% year over year, right? A lot of my businesses that I cover on this channel don't do that. Note the electricity price, 4 cents. They pay 4 cents in electricity. They own a lot of the sites. They have contracts with the power companies. They also have hosted sites where they have a cheap price of electricity. This has become much more valuable today in the era of AI. Adjusted EBITDA, which is what I think matters the most in business. Their adjusted EBITDA is 1.2 billion in Q2 2025, as opposed to 125 million back in Q1. Look at their deployment, right? 30,000 miners at 18.3 joules at 4 cents a kilowatt hour. You make money. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, Mara doesn't make money," but that's old news. They make money on that. I'll show you in the calculator in a second. Also, they closed on their debt. They did their convertible senior net debt. They borrowed at 0%. And what did they do with that? They bought Bitcoin back then. So they had a lot of conviction when they did that, and that was pretty impressive. Anyways, if you look at them making money, if you look at the miner, so this miner, the Watts miner M60S, this miner is actually 18.3 joules roughly, which is exactly why I picked it. So if you go in a mining calculator, you put 4 cents. You put the Bitcoin price of right now, and you assume they don't overclock them, which I'm sure Mara does. I'm sure they get probably 10% above and beyond that. But you can see this miner makes about $1.27 a day. That's roughly what it makes. So that's the profit, and that's after having paid the electric bill, right? They make much more if you remove the electric bill. So 30,000 of them. And that's just for a tiny part of their deployment. 30,000 of them, times $1.27 overclocked. Let's just say that it's gonna be like $1.50 times 30,000. There you go. You got your $45,000 a day just from this one small deployment. I have a habit of saying they have older miners. Yeah, October 2023. That's a little older than the shiniest ones of today, but it's still recent enough, right? It's still recent enough. And a lot of people critique Mara. They will criticize Mara for diluting to grow the hodl bag. And sure, Mara has had dilution, and people often get mad at the CEO and say the CEO pay is outrageous, etc. Note that it's a trend in Bitcoin miners. They used to say the same thing about the Clean Spark CEO. Anyways, it's a trend among Bitcoin miner. Perhaps a lot of bots. Perhaps there's a lot of bots starting these trends on X. But anyways, yeah, I mean, sure, CEOs make a lot of money. Sure, that's not my problem. But that's not my point. My point is, yeah, they're growing the number of shares. Why are they growing the number of shares? They're growing the number of shares mostly so they get to grow their hodl bag and keep their hodl bag and not have to sell them in the open market. In my view, this is more complicated. This is a more convoluted, less understandable way to acquire Bitcoin, but they still nonetheless acquire Bitcoin at a discount, which Saylor does not. Saylor acquires Bitcoin at the market price. So Saylor is ATMing to grow his hodl bag right away, right? They are increasing the number of shares outstanding to grow their hodl bag, not right away, to grow it via mining. But because they mine at a discount, it's somewhat similar to them trading at a higher MNAV. When you dilute to mine at a discount, it's somewhat similar to them trading at a higher MNAV. Now the question is the time you waste mining the Bitcoin at a discount, is that worth the benefit that you would have of diluting right now to buy right now at a price right now? It's debatable. For the longest time, we would all have said, yeah, it's better to be Saylor. But now that the miners are pumping, people are realizing, well, wait a minute, the miners perhaps are not that bad. And even then, all of these operations I discuss with Mara, all of this stuff that I discuss, really doesn't matter, because it's not getting any premium for the Bitcoin mining operations, but more importantly, it's going to be an energy play, and Mara is getting no love for their energy play. Now they have their hosted assets, and they don't own those. That's fine. We're not going to count those. We're going to count just the owned assets. The owned assets are the 1.1 gigawatt capacity. The yellow right here on that chart, that's what they got. That's what they have. These have become much more valuable now that we're in the era of AI. You will note that when I discussed Riot not too long ago, a lot of people made fun of me because I was praising the Corsicana data center of Riot. They have a very big data center in Corsicana. I was saying, yeah, you know what, it could be a big deal with that data center. That could be a huge AI HPC. What did we learn? Was it a week ago or 2 weeks back that they're gonna do a triple net something, that they're gonna lease it, that it's gonna be a data AI HPC for Riot? Riot was right here. Right? If I look at Mara, I look at their first data center, 232 megawatt, potentially 300 megawatt. Where are we at? I mean, we're at about the same distance from the DFW area as we are from Corsicana. This is roughly the same distance, right? I put the Dallas airport here as an indication. Yeah, I'm sure Corsicana is even further away from the Dallas airport. Maybe more Fort Worth than Dallas, but this is very close. So this data center would probably be better used for AI HPC, if you ask me. So that's pretty impressive right here. Now they're also working on this operation. Now this site, I was reading more about this site. This site has optionality, and with grid connection, you could get this site to 240 megawatt, and they own this entire site. Like, surely enough, and they bought this a while back. So surely enough, this site right there is probably worth more money today than it was years back when they bought it. And so I think the market gives no love to Mara for all of these energy assets. And we know Mara is looking at AI. We know they're wanting to get into the AI game because of their latest HPC, high performance compute investment in France. They were able to buy this EDF subsidiary, Exaion, and that's actually pretty impressive. And I actually saw this randomly on French news the other day, like a blockchain. A blockchain group, like a cohort of blockchain entrepreneurs who are very upset that Exaion was sold to Mara and was not sold to a French company. They were very upset about that, saying, "Oh, we're losing one of the more advanced players in the sector." They were very upset over there. If I look at Exaion and I look at the service offered, we're clearly into AI HPC. Feel free to pause and take a look at all of the stuff that is offered. And they're going to own, with their option, they have an option to buy more, they're going to own 75% of this business. 75% of this business. And if I look at this business, I can't really figure out where the data centers are. But from what I understand, they have 3 AI HPC sites in France, and they have one in Quebec, one in Canada, Quebec. That's from what I understand. And the only address I can find is the one in Quebec. But from what I understand, these are co-located with EDF's data centers, and so that would be 3 of them in France. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to say there's at least 1 data center in France, 1 in Canada. Anyways, the point is, this is a costly signal, them putting that money in there. That's a signal that they're looking at AI. They want to get into AI. They see what has happened with the other Bitcoin miners, and this investment, quite frankly, it's a nice grab. I mean, it's impressive that they were able to grab this investment. And I look forward to seeing, what the value of this investment is in the future, knowing that they're going to own 75% of it. So this company has started what seems to be a pivot into AI. Anyways, I mean, we'll get confirmation of that in the next earnings call and in the next conversation. So I look forward to Q3. But Mara is a stock I owned. I've owned it for a while. I'm actually up on it. I'm happy. I was buying in the $15 range, so I'm happy. I'm up on it. But this is a stock that I may want to increase my exposure if the MNAV keeps being stuck near a 1. That's my take on this. So is Mara next to run? I don't know. I think it's entirely possible, but I know that I love the margin of safety of a stock trading at a 1x MNAV. So anyways, this was not investment advice, not financial advice. This is only entertainment on this channel, only entertainment. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.